Formula One has changed, and maybe it is for the better. To the casual observer, the opening seasons of the 2026 Grand Prix might have looked like any other Friday at Suzuka. The high-speed sweeps of the E6, the terrifying compression of 130R, and the iconic figure 8 layout that remains only one of its kind on the calendar. But beneath the surface, the sport is no longer a simple race to the finish line. It has become a war of energy management, a tactical battle for the kinetic meta that has rewired how we understand a fast lap. In the 1990s and the early 2000s, Formula One was built for a specific kind of front-foot aggression. Engines were visceral, mechanical monsters. You had to push until the tires gave up or the gearbox exploded. It was a race to the corner, brake late, turn in, and repeat until infinity. But watch how the laps played out today at Suzuka. We are seeing a fundamental shift in how lap times are actually constructed. In free practice 2, Oscar Piastri didn't top the charts because his McLaren was inherently faster in a straight line. He did it because he and his team found a different way to solve the geometry of the track. To understand how this happened, we have to look at the world these drivers are living in. In the 2026 era, the regulations have introduced a technical bottleneck that has changed the sport, the energy recharge limit. This is the technical pivot that has changed a revolution in driving style. For the Japanese Grand Prix, the FIA lowered the recharge limit from 9 megajoules to 8, a move intended to prevent super clipping, which was the awkward phenomenon where a car harvests energy while the driver is still flat out on throttle. This regulatory tweak has created a fascinating point of divergence between the grid's two leading philosophies. McLaren and Mercedes are currently achieving the most identical lap times, yet the data shows they are doing so in so many different ways. It's the tactical yo-yo. McLaren, chasing Mercedes for the better part of the season, has opted out to an aggressive early deployment strategy. Oscar Piastri is hitting a peak of 328 kilometers per hour coming out of the final chicane and down to the main straight. He's spending his technical currency pretty much early, putting himself half a second up before he enters the first sector. Mercedes, by contrast, is playing the long game. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli have been much more conservative in the opening half of the lap, with Russell peaking at only 305 kilometers an hour on the same stretch where Piastri is flying. However, the pendulum swings back at the spoon curve. As the McLaren begins to clip, losing power as its battery drains, the Mercedes finally deploys its saved energy, hitting 330 kilometers an hour on the back straight. They are effectively countering the McLaren's burst of energy by waiting for that aggression to fade before striking back in the final sector. This creates a brand of racing that feels entirely modern. The gaps narrow and widen not just because of driver error, but because of calculated expenditure of a finite resource. It's no longer just about who can break in the latest hairpin, it's about who can manage their recharge through the E6 so that they don't have to hit the 8 megajoule limit too early. George Russell's struggles on Friday were a perfect example of this new complexity. He was hitting his recharge limit earlier than Antonelli because of a slight difference in driving style through turns 13 and 14. By charging too much too soon, he ran out of the ability to deploy later in the lap, costing him precious tenths of the final corner. The beauty of this evolution is that it opens the door for a tactical battle that wasn't possible 20 years ago. McLaren knows that they might not have the pure pace to beat Mercedes in the traditional sprint. The long-run data still shows a half-second drift in favor of the Silver Arrows. But by deploying in different areas of the track, McLaren can become a spoiler. If they can hold track precision by using their powers in places where Mercedes is recharging, they can break the overtake activation window and become a genuine nuisance. They are using their equipment to charge the shape of the race, keeping the more powerful opponent pinned back by disrupting their flow. However, we must also acknowledge the super clipping reality. For some veterans like Fernando Alonso or Carlos Sainz have noted that this generation of cars feels like the Formula One of old. Into corners like 130R, the cars are losing upwards of 50 kilometers an hour, while the drivers are still at full throttle, simply because the battery has stopped providing assist. Through the ESAs, many teams are choosing not to run their MGUK at all, relying solely on the V6 internal combustion engine. It makes the cars look sedate in places where they used to look violent. But maybe this is just the new reality. Every sport eventually settles on a most sensible way of doing things, and then a new technology or a new set of rules comes along and forces everyone to start searching again. Right now, Red Bull is a lost team on that search. Their car balance isn't there, and they're struggling with understeer and super clipping in all the wrong places. They look more like a midfield team than the dominant force of a previous decade. Their upgrade package is behaving, but the fundamental car balance is missing, leaving Max Verstappen frustrated and searching for answers in a game that has moved away from his traditional strengths. The shift in Red Bull's fortunes is perhaps the most telling sign of a new era. For years, they relied on a car that was the ultimate tool, a machine that could handle any amount of tension and provide a pure, aggressive turn. But at Suzuka, that tool is vibrating. Verstappen and Paul Monahan have admitted that the car simply isn't good around the corners at the moment. When the game becomes about energy management over pure aerodynamic efficiency, the old giants have to learn new footwork. Max's frustration isn't just about pace, and it's about the loss of feel. He is a driver who wants to dictate the rhythm, but the 2026 rules have made the lap much longer and more taxing. This brings us to the Ferrari Factor. While McLaren is the current outlier in the FP2 data, Ferrari is playing the role of the annoyance. Charles Leclerc spoke openly about their inability to beat Mercedes on a pure long-run pace, but he noted something crucial: they can annoy them. In a world where deployment is a finite resource, being a nuisance is a competitive strategy. If Ferrari can get track position using their superior start advantage, a serve that remains best of the grid, they can force Mercedes into mistakes. When you're under constant pressure from someone who won't let you find your rhythm, your energy management maps start to fail. You start over-deploying to defend, and by the end of the race, you have nothing left in the tank. The data for long runs support this. While Antonelli's Mercedes was lapping in the 1 minute and 34.7 seconds, Priashi's McLaren was trapped in traffic, drifting to a 1 minute and 35.9 seconds before settling at a theoretical 1 minute and 35.2 seconds. That half-second gap is the baseline drift that defines the current hierarchy. Mercedes has the faster feet, but McLaren and Ferrari have that tactical spin. They are gambling on the fact that Suzuka is a difficult circuit for overtaking. If they can manage their 8 megajoule limit better over the course of the 53 laps, the pure pace advantage of the Mercedes might never find an opening. Furthermore, we have to consider the mental fatigue of the drivers. In the past, the fatigue was physical, fighting the G-forces and the heavy steering. Today, the fatigue is cognitive. A driver like Kimi Antonelli is being asked to manage a complex electrical system while having to navigate the most technical sectors in the world at 250 kilometers an hour. He is constantly receiving advice through the spoon curve about his recharge levels. He is being told where to spend and when to save. It's the equivalent of a tactician shouting adjustments between every single movement. The systems around the driver, the better data, the tracking, and the deeper understanding of the kinetic meta, these are becoming the real differentiator. As we move toward qualifying and the race, the track will ramp up. Drivers will break 10 meters later into the hairpin, and corners like Denier 1 and the spoon will be taken even faster. This sounds like it would require more energy, but it means less harvesting, which might help drivers like Russell avoid hitting their recharge limit too early. The systems around the driver, the data, the engineers at Brixworth and Woking, and the real-time energy maps are becoming just as important as the person behind the wheel. We are moving toward a sport that is much more about the software as it is about the hardware. But there is one final piece of the puzzle: the outliers. Every now and then, a driver shows up who sees the game differently. In this era, it's the driver who finds a line through the 130R that everyone else thought was impossible because of the clipping. Oscar Piastri is starting to look like that driver. He has a calmness that believes the complexity of the machine that he is operating, while his teammate Lando Norris is struggling with hydraulic leaks and terrible car balance, feeling 3 steps behind behind, Piastri is quietly optimizing his deployment maps. He is finding edges that the others are missing. McLaren has also played a strategic wildcard by keeping 2 sets of hard tires back, which was actually the only team to do so. It's a strategic choice that gives them options if a safety car disrupts the flow of the weekend. They are acknowledging that they might not win the exchange on pure speed, so they are changing the tension of their strategy. They're looking for the outliers, the crazier scenarios that might manifest on Sunday when the qualifying data is thrown out the window. Formula 1 never really stops searching. The sport keeps looking for edges, and every now and then, somebody finds that completely changes the shape of the game. Whether it's McLaren's decision to keep 2 sets of hard tires back for its strategic flexibility or their unique deployment map at Suzuka, they are looking for a way to win a war that is no longer fought solely with horsepower. The real question now might not be who is fastest over one lap. Instead, it might be what the next revolution in energy management look like. The transition from the high-octane era of racing to this modern kinetic meta might be jarring for some. They missed the real F1 where engines screamed and the batteries didn't exist. But this new era requires a different kind of genius. It requires a driver who can think in 3 dimensions: pace, position, and power. The gap is there, and the challenge is clear, and the annoyance for the established leaders could be extreme. Subscribe to the data, watch the traces, and you'll see that the race hasn't just started, it's been rewired. The 2026 Japanese Grand Prix is not just a race. It is the first manifestation of a future where the smartest driver, not just the fastest one, takes the trophy. Let me know in the comments where you think this tech will head next, and if you're new here, subscribe.